Hello and welcome to another conversation with leaders working behind the scenes to improve how industry runs. Today's guest brings a wealth of experience and expertise at this intersection of technology and industrial transformation, not just in theory, but at scale and in demanding high-volume industrial environments. Amir Khoshniyati has spent his career helping advanced technologies move from concept to real-world deployment across global supply chains. Amir is currently vice president at Wiliot and has held leadership roles at Identiv and Avery Dennison, where he's helped guide the evolution and adoption of Bluetooth Low Energy. And when he's not neck deep in helping reimagine how industry operates, Amir is assisting youth in the Southern California community through his organization. Amir, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really glad we get to do this.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Looking forward to the discussion.
So before we get into factories and supply chains and all the serious stuff, we like to kick things off with a totally off-the-wall question just to kind of loosen us up. Are you up for it?
Let's do it.
So, Amir, your question is, would you rather only be able to speak in rhyme for a day or sing everything like it's a musical?
Wow. Well, I guess if you can rhyme in a certain way, it could turn into a musical. It could be almost like a rap. But I'll go with sing through the day.
Sing through the day. I kind of liked where you're going, though, like two birds with one stone.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
you could find I think a healthy common ground there.
yeah, yeah.
Although I really can't do either, but ambition wise, maybe the singing.
I was going to ask, would others be excited to hear you sing for a day?
Absolutely not. So
All right, excellent. So listen, for anyone watching who might not be as familiar with Wiliot, how would you describe what Wiliot does?
well, we're an ambient IoT organization. We're a platform-centric company. We ingest data from all kinds of sources, but it really starts with the IoT pixels. We're the source of truth, really, for your supply chain. We have AI built into the platform. So the way that it works is these pixels, they sit on everyday items. We're able to understand the product provenance of those items, where they're going through the supply chain. So you're creating a whole new ecosystem where it's much more than just understanding where your item is. You're understanding the state of that item through the supply chain. And when it gets to that end destination, there's so much value with all the data that you're pulling in. So very exciting times.
It is. It is exciting. I can't wait to dig in. And really what I want to dig into with you today is how technology is showing up on the ground to help industrial operations run more efficiently, more resiliently, more responsibly. Before we talk about the solutions, though, let's talk about the challenges. So where do you see, the greatest need and maybe even the greatest opportunity to improve how industrial operations run today?
I would say the biggest need right now is really around visibility and a source of truth behind where the items are. And if you look at the technology ladder over the years, we've had standard labels, barcodes, those have evolved into RFID tags. RFID tags have done well with speed of reading, taken away the requirement for line of sight. But there's still areas where there's still gaps when you look at the technology stack. For example, the expensive infrastructure needs to outfit a truck so you can get visibility while an item is in transit from a DC to a shop floor, or from a manufacturing center to a DC. And this applies to all different segments. The other piece of it is that it's not just the visibility aspect, but it's also the source of truth around the sensing of those items. If you have a pallet of dairy or a pallet of meat and it's moving from one location to another and it's in refrigeration during the transit, are you 100% sure that during that cycle you didn't have a temperature variance and something didn't go up or down? And if it did go up or down, did it impact the entire the fleet of cases or items that were in transit, or was it a sub portion that could be disposed, but everything else can be salvaged? So that source of truth is missing also in the equation. Um, that's the biggest gap that I see right now in the push that we're doing is the visibility and then the source of truth behind it.
You talked a little bit about some of those hidden workflows at work, and can you help us understand how, how small inefficiencies there can really turn into to big challenges. And if you can remove some of those inefficiencies, the impact of from a system perspective.
Yeah, it's a great question. And so when you look at if we go all the way downstream and you're in a restaurant and you taste, your salmon or your steak and something doesn't taste right, it's off on the flavor, you want to understand, is this safe for me to finish my meal or is something wrong with it? Being able to source back to the product provenance of where the item was sourced, how it was basically refrigerated, frozen through the process, all of the nodes in that supply chain, being able to get that level of visibility is so important on your items. And even that minimal variation that you get can impact the end result there. And this is an extreme case because this is something that's a consumable, but that's really what we're setting out from a journey perspective to ingest in our platform, provide that level of reliability behind the items is we really want to understand in those areas of the supply chain where there's brownout spots, can we go a little bit extra and get that level of visibility and then be that source of truth? And all it takes is, from what we're seeing in many of these use cases, less than 10 minutes of volatility in temperature can destroy a perishable. So that's in an entire product journey over a couple days from one source to another. There's many opportunities for something to go wrong, and having that full level visibility through the cycle is so important.
You just used a term called brownouts, right? And I'm wondering if you can share with us, like, is there a notorious brownout or a notorious spot where you lose visibility and wish you could have it?
Absolutely. So when you look at any kind of brownout, the standard area where something could go wrong is typically in transit, because when it's within a four walls of a facility, you have your readers, you have workflows, and typically, if they're automated to some degree, you have control over it. Now, if there's manual workflows behind it, and you have an operator that's going through, or a warehouse manager that's going through and doing checks, and they don't follow the standard workflow, there is error. It's error prone as a result of it. But when an item leaves the facility, that's basically step one for a brownout to happen.
Mhm.
And when it's going through that process from one stage to another, typically there is no visibility with what technologies there are out there. So you're relying on basically a telematics system, hopefully that doesn't go down through the process. And in many cases, even if it's running and that truck is going through a desert drive for 5 hours and the sun is beating on one side of the truck, uh, many times you don't have that item level visibility to say that the right side of the truck was under direct sun and the left side was maybe on the shade during this drive, and that there might have been a temperature variance between one half versus the second half of the truck. And that's where this level of visibility on the technology stacks goes one layer deeper, because you can find the variances between your items, even if they're in the same vicinity, and throughout the journey.
For those who might not be as close to it, can you talk about again, like the impact that predictive maintenance and that predictive insight can have? How is that measured, and what does that change for the better?
Well, I think it's important on all fronts. But if I have to dwell it down to one use case just now, it's let's say you have a pallet and that pallet just gets assembled in your facility, and then it's supposed to move on truck A, and it's supposed to go out the door. That pallet goes to truck B by mistake. In a predictive, proactive state, you'd want to know as soon as that pallet is rolling up to truck A, it's not supposed to go there. It's supposed to go to truck B. So you don't go through the song and dance of loading that pallet, going about the next work item, and then realizing that you need to offload that and then move it over, because all that time is cost and it's inefficiency. And in some cases, if you don't catch it, it's a big problem, because now truck A has went to a destination that is completely off and misrouted versus where it was supposed to be. So having that level of visibility in a predictive way, and then being able to catch it if something goes wrong ahead of time, it's a world of a difference. And this is a very simple example, but if you amplify this 10, 20, 30 fold, it's a major saving. And this is just one facility versus many that many large retailers have or logistics companies have. And as you know, in the logistics space, they're moving a lot of packages, a lot of items on a daily basis. You want to have that visibility. And if you go a little bit more upstream, so if you have roll cages that have these items, and then they're moving around the facility as they're putting items into crates, or they're putting them into assemblies for pallets, and then they're going out the door. You want to be able to catch it before it's even assembled. So all of these little workflows, they add up to major cost. And if you're not able to catch it in a predictive way, it becomes problematic at the end.
And then, of course, because, there is the logo behind me, I do want to ask a little bit about Bluetooth technology. What's maybe the biggest misconception that you still hear about Bluetooth in industrial environments? And then, what proof do you have that it's just a myth?
The misconception today, I think, is that it's just mainly a consumer product and it can't be used in a business environment. We need to break through that, I think, as a whole entire ecosystem. The other is the cost benefit portion of it. I think the cost benefit portion of it is still a misalignment in the industry, and I think we're going to cut through this pretty quickly in the next 1 to 2 years, maybe even sooner. But that Bluetooth is just expensive, and when you compare it to legacy technologies, uh, why would I use it if I can get the similar benefit on the location side with existing technologies? And that's a myth because I think as you're getting more adoption and the volumes increase, especially with the level of what we're calling physical AI and feeding all this data into the ambient IoT, it's the economies of scale. As the volumes go up, the cost goes down. So we are getting in the right arena that it's also becoming something that's scalable and is affordable for organizations to invest in.
If adoption and maturity of these innovations continued to accelerate, what kind of world do you think we're helping build, you're helping build, for industries, for operations, and ultimately for everyday people?
It's a connected world, and I use this analogy a couple times now that it's a web, and this web has data that flows in and out. We're in a world that our supply chains are interconnected. It's a reality where we are. If you're an organization manufacturing something and you're moving it through the supply chain, you have dependencies on others that are in the supply chain. They're another node through the process. So being able to share that data not only automates and creates efficiency, but it creates a more sustainable future for all of us. So I think that's kind of tick mark one. The other is that we're in an arena that we're innovating together. So this ecosystem, it's not just about data, it's about opportunity that if you're an organization, you can play in any one of these work streams and you still have a path to market and you're part of the storyline. So it has good business ramifications and benefits, but it also has a brighter future for everybody else that's part of the entire journey together.
Lastly, if you could speak directly to, the Bluetooth developer community, what would you want them to understand about the impact their work is having on industry and industrial operations, the people running them and then the world at large?
I want to say thank you. I think we're making tremendous strides. And again, I use that example of kind of the personal use versus the business use of Bluetooth technology. So I think we're making really good progress. So I would say first, thank you to the community for everything they're doing. But second, don't slow down. Be able to give requirements. We should be able to voice it in these silos. The best requirements come from the ground and the everyday users so that we can continue to innovate together.
All right. Well, Amir, thank you so much for taking the time to share your perspective with us today. The work you're doing, helping bring visibility and a source of truth into these operations. It really plays a real role in keeping supply chains moving and supporting the people and communities that rely on them. So, we're grateful for that, and we're grateful for your time today.
Really enjoyed the discussion. Thank you so much, Dave.